Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Wyant, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Great Tech Group. This episode was recorded live from Autodesk University in Nashville, Tennessee, where the brightest minds in construction, design, and technology came together to shape the future. Over the course of AU, we talked with industry leaders, innovators, and the change makers about the trends, tools, and ideas driving digital transformation in our great industry. So settle in as we explore how to model the future of construction innovation. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Great Tech Group. We are recording live from Autodesk University here in Nashville, Tennessee, and super excited to be joined by Mark Dinius of Satterfield Pontikes. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with how you got into the construction industry and a little bit about SatPon for those who might not know.
Yeah, so I came out of Purdue University and was part of the first wave of like BIM degreed people, right? And so we learned virtual construction in the classroom, and then all the companies were kind of like on the ropes, some of them ahead of the curve, some of them behind the curve when we were coming out of college. This is like 2009. And so we were the first wave of people coming out of school that had that true BIM degree, and started my career going down that path, right? And then Satterfield Pontikes, general contractor, we've seen a ton of growth. Last couple years, we are just over $1 billion as far as our revenue value goes. Based out of Houston, Texas, offices in Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. We've got a number of subsidiaries that do self-perform work, so interior finish out stuff. We got concrete, roll compacted concrete. We now have a mechanical company that's brand new. And then we also have a separate arm that does wastewater treatment facilities and heavy industrial. Really cool. And then there's another one that's CMPM services. So it's anything that we can get our hands into construction, whether we're building it at risk or helping out our owners and clients to help them get through their part, then we're there.
Yeah. What kind of projects do you guys typically work on?
Yeah, so the at-risk side is going to be, I would say about 40% of our book is still K through 12. Which are hard projects, coincidentally. But K through 12, we do commercial. We've just gotten into the high-rise space in Houston, which we are excited about. We're getting heavier into healthcare. We've got industrial that's under our umbrella, too, that's outside of even the heavy industrial for the wastewater treatment facilities. Getting into industrial, doing a lot of warehouses. Yeah, so a good mix of just different things in the book. We're trying to grow healthcare, the biggest right now. But K through 12, we're definitely known in Texas as one of the better K through 12 builders, and there's a lot of history for us there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I feel like with SatPon, you guys are known for being pretty cutting edge and testing out new things. Even just explaining what SatPon does, you guys have your hand in a lot of different pots. Why do you guys feel that's an important thing to really invest in on the technology side, as well as we're just kind of exploring what is out there?
Yeah, so it starts with our CEO, George Pontikes. He is heavy into tech, right? And he considers himself the world's oldest techie, which is really cool. He is quite the character. But it starts with him. He sees that value. He has that vision. And it's cool for us because he's the most supportive in the fact of us going out and being on, he calls it the bleeding edge, right? You're not the leading edge because you're not even sure what that value is, but you're willing to go out and spend for it and figure that out. He calls that the bleeding edge, and that's where we live, right? But he's so reinforcing of us trying to leverage technology and emerging technologies to do different things, to shed risk as a builder, but it's also be a differentiator, right? Us breaking into new sectors and everybody trying to break into new sectors is difficult. So you got to find that niche of what works for you. Us, it's the way we control risk, the way that we view that risk through the lens of data and using models and using technologies to make us as best builder that we can be. Right? And George is just out there. Yeah, he's trying to change the industry, number one, and it's cool to see. And he knows that technology can do that.
Yeah. So what's it like building that kind of culture, though? Because construction, while changing some and getting more innovative, is obviously not known for being the most innovative and open to change and testing out different things. What's it like bringing that culture into force in the construction industry?
It's difficult.
I imagine.
Yeah, my VP of Project Controls and I, we live it every day in this world of change management, right? And it's, no offense to all the contractors out there, but he's like, there's this old school mentality, these knuckle dragging, like, we're going to get things across the goal line, beg, borrow, and steal, right? Right. And the irony is that in a technology-driven, data-driven type of company, you don't have to do that. And so it's, you have to approach it differently with different styles of people. For us, the more value we can provide to them and the more efficient that we can be with them, the more trust we get from them, right? Contractors are big on, they want to talk to people that come from the industry, that understand the industry, that know the industry. So our people have to be well-rounded in not only the tech, but talking to construction and then driving some change within those people, right? It's very ground up change. It's really hard, right?
Have you seen an evolution in that kind of mentality over the last few years?
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's this hill. Once you can push that boulder up the hill and you've got that trust that they realize that you have developed a process that's truly trying to help them be better at their job and leveraging technology to do that, then it's downhill. They become the people that are talking to their own peers to say, why aren't you using this? Yeah. It saved my ass on this job 3 times full. Right? They got it to me in a hurry. It's like, why are you not using it? Right. So it's interesting to see that dynamic. You get a couple of those people to turn that corner, be on the downstream of that hill, and it happens fast. But obviously the pushing the boulder up the hill is not always the most fun, but seeing it go down the other side is always super rewarding.
Yeah, if you can get that hard skeptic and win them over,
yes,
and you're golden then.
Yeah, the irony is there's at least in our company, and we're down in Texas, right? The ones that are the most seasoned, right, and probably the closest to those guys that are dragging the knuckles are the ones that actually turn the quickest, which is surprising. Yeah. It's the people that are kind of like still growing in their career, that are they're not just out of school, but they're 10 years into it, and they're in their first key position or running their first mega project, right? They've got a lot on their plate, and there's a lot of risk in there, and they're focused on executing the way that they think they can execute. And sometimes they get those blinders on about how emerging technologies can actually help them. And so it's an interesting dynamic that's in there from the people side.
Yeah. Is that more stemming from maybe a fear of failure then, of not wanting to take that risk because what happens if it goes bad?
Yeah.
And they don't want to be out on the ledge by themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Like nobody's comfortable. I don't think anybody's comfortable sitting there saying, like, I screwed up, right?
Right.
And so everybody's trying to prevent that.
Failure is a 4-letter word.
That's exactly it. And it's one of those things that, like, there's so much moving parts and pieces in there that they think that technology is something that's, a little bit of a boondoggle, or it's going to take time away from other things. It's, technology is this, in my mind, this cube that you're spinning around, a 3D cube that you're spinning around, and you're looking for deficient sides. And that's how we look at risk, right? So we're looking for the deficient side, whether it's production or whether it's a buyout gap or procurement lead times, whatever that is, we're trying to find that piece so we can flag it as early as possible. Because when you flag it early, it's way less impactful. Sometimes it just gets lost in they've got this playbook in their mind about how to execute. And when they go off that playbook, it's tough for them to feel like that they got to get back to it. There's so many resources that are out there to help them. Like, that's what our VDC and our technology groups are here to do, is to help them find solutions to stay on that book, right? To be that support vehicle. It's a lot of change that happens, and sometimes even then, those early career guys, like, they don't want to sit there and say, I had to drop the ball here, right?
Right.
They're trying to execute to perfection, and it's never perfect. It never goes perfectly.
Yeah. So as you're looking out, and seeing the landscape of the industry right now, what trends are popping up, or what challenges are you guys facing that you're trying to look for? What's the next solution? What's the next best thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously AI is this bullet train. It feels like everybody's just trying to put a lasso on. We're in that same position, and we've made a couple key hires to help us, I think, be very tactical with how we're handling AI. And I'm excited to see where we're going to go with it. There's just so many vendors right now, and they've got a great head start on what their product is. But everybody is so into one different niche. It does one thing. This does another thing. Like, this does another thing. And in my mind, we're being careful not to commit to too many that are just ones and ones and ones and ones, right? We're looking and we're waiting, really, to see who pops up as a more comprehensive, we're developing agents in all of these different areas that can approach construction and AI, not from just, I do this and this other product does this. Like, there's so many opportunities. I think that we're just so early that we're trying. We may not be on that bleeding edge for AI, right?
Well, the interesting thing with AI is what is the bleeding edge, because it's the wild, wild west. So
right.
The bleeding edge, it's kind of whatever you want to define it as.
Even the models are changing so rapidly. I don't know how even in a developer, how they can stay on top of what their product is as the models are changing, right?
Right.
So I think for us, the weight approach is going to be where we find best fit, best value, especially with us moving over from Procore ACC at the beginning of last year and developing, having you guys help us with ERP Sync and like everything else like that. There's so much change that's already gone on, is that there's attrition in our teams. It's like literally they see me coming, it's like, not another tool. Please, not another tool, right? So we're being tactical, one, from making sure our users feel like that they're not overwhelmed with what we're doing, but also I think it's strategic to wait and see what comes up from the AI side.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into that. So you just went through a big migration, Procore to ACC. Huge. How do you handle a migration like that without overwhelming people?
Yeah, we actually, we took it very strategically. We can't disrupt projects by just saying, hey, you're 9 months into an 18-month job, we're going to swap your project management platform. So we approached it where, we signed some deals with Autodesk and we ramped. So we had a cutoff where we said all new projects are going to be ACC. We thought we had about 3 months before we were going to kick off our first job, and it ended up being about 3 weeks. And so we had a very, very aggressive implementation period. I think actually one of the things that a lot of people ask how that happens, right? How are you so successful in that? Myself, our VP of Project Controls, had almost unilateral decision making. So when we ran into areas where it's literally a 50-50 give or take, we would ask for CFO or our president if he's leaning a certain way in that approach. If they're not, we'll ask down in the fields and get some feedback there. But it was very much like we had the mentality that we were taking new tech, and we're not going to take old process to fit new tech. So let's make sure that when we're trying to implement this new tech, let's come up with new ways. What is the best way that we should approach this with out of the box? Built processes, built controls, and built the tools to match that, and then rolled out several phases of training and development there. And it was, I'm surprised actually at how successful that is. The only part that we're got on the other side is that change management people, right?
Right. Well, that's always one of the harder issues. It's harder to change people than to change the tech.
Exactly.
Every time. So we're in the Great Tech booth. Let's talk about the partnership a bit. Have you been partnering with Great Tech? You mentioned a bit about the ERP Agave Sync, but what else? What's been going on there?
Yeah. ERP Agave Sync is good. We appreciate, I can tell you that I appreciate the most. The relationship there is that going into this transition, I was always concerned about how many people are in the loops, in the links between us using a platform, us having an ERP that's over here, and how many people are in that gap, right? Lovingly internal to the company, it's we call it one throat to choke, and that is my throat. Great Tech has been a phenomenal one throat to choke for me, right? I mean, the fact that you guys hold all that licensing, you guys have the support behind. Tell me how Autodesk is interpreting this stuff. Tell me how you guys are seeing some of your other clients using this, right? Making sure that we're on solid footing for the way we're thinking about this. And then the second part is the ERP Sync. Our ERP is not an easy product to move data in and out of. And your guys' piece there was instrumental in making sure that the core ERP is not going to be disrupted with everything that we're disrupting as far as like the change in the field, right? And it works really well. And honestly, when you guys stood up the ERP Sync for us, I want to say the first rollout was like 2 weeks in. And then we just basically, the team was releasing more and more stuff like in 2 week intervals. Like it was pretty crazy, real fast. Yes. I love it too. Gary Edwards is who I was working with, Great Tech, was talking about the ERP Sync. And he put it perfectly. There was another company out there that we were looking at. We were about ready to sign contracts, and they're busy. They had it was like a 14 or 12 week implementation timeline, and it was like the first 6 weeks was just their backlog. So they weren't going to be able to even touch us until that first 6 weeks before we got into discovery and how we want to do that. And Gary put it best. He put it perfectly. He goes, listen. We could try and we could fail in that time frame, and you'll know if you're going to fail or not. We can try and we can fail in that timeline, and you'll know. And it was great to see you guys provide and fit some of our concerns and the things that we were projecting that we were going to have issues with, and then kind of adopting around us to say, how can we truly support you in this, right? And that you guys basically said, yeah, let us take a swing at it. If it doesn't work, no problem.
Well, it goes back to that innovative mindset of trying it, testing it out. If it fails, that's okay. You learn from it. You can move on and adapt in real time. Having those iterations is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. You guys got some good things going on. We stay pretty connected. Different ideas that we got. Obviously, our CEO, he is an investor in different startups, and he's out there in that tech space and wants to be in that tech space. So I think we play pretty close to see what we're seeing, see what the trends are. And I know you guys are developing stuff, so it's really cool.
How do you keep up with the outcomes of adopting a new tech, or, whether it's the ERP sync or coming on with ACC? How do you measure the success of that implementation?
Yeah, it's mainly in the people, right? So, again, my part's actually significantly easier than our project control side. I get to come in, evaluate the tech, and find how it can fit a process. Mm-hmm. But then it's kind of, after that part, it's kind of a little bit hands-off on my side. I'm looking for more efficiency gains and then measurements, right? So I measure, we do a lot of Power BI reports, we do a lot of merging different data to try to find if there are things that are moving in the way that they're not supposed to. So we build a lot of stuff around there, and that measures success, right? Mm-hmm. If people follow in process. The other side is that we set up a support mechanism to all of ACC, created a ticketing system with a couple people on the other end of it. So we monitor like ticket volumes, what departments are they coming from, what business units are they coming from, how do we attack those to make it so that there's less reactionary type of issues that are there. How can we make those PMs and everybody more proactive in what they're doing and feel more solid in what that ACC piece is and what their process is. Mm-hmm. We measure it that side, right? So there's the people side, and then we've got, are we seeing in the project controls, are they staying on what their plan is and the direction that we've given them and the workflows that are in there? And when they deviate, then we've got flags to say, okay, what projects are struggling, what PMs are struggling, let's find ways to help them, and let's do it early in the process, right? We go back to that, find it early so we can make an improvement instead of having to be a big critical issue. Yeah,
nice. What role does a partnership play in your mind in helping with your success and coming alongside of you?
Yeah, honestly, we don't know what we don't know, and you guys get visibility into so many companies. So you guys understand how we're set up, and you understand how our competitors or our peers or anybody that's a subcontractor or subsidiary or whatever that is, you guys have broader vision than we could ever have. To me, you guys can't give away client information, but you have the ability, and you've provided that ability to help us understand what we're not seeing, right? Because I don't see what I can't see. So you guys help us by seeing like how other people are doing it and providing that advice back to us on if you consider doing it this way, or maybe I've seen somebody do it this way, and it's like, ooh, like I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I think having that sounding board is huge to help fill in the blind spots, because everybody's gonna have blind spots. You don't know what you don't know, like to what you said. So I think that's huge. So as you're looking out over the next couple of years, you mentioned AI, but what are some of the kind of next steps of the innovation and digital transformation journey for you?
Yeah, I would, honestly, I've wielding a machete on our ERP right now. I would love to see ERP pop up, something that's definitely more modern in some of the ways that are there. There's been a big push in pre-con, and pre-con has gotten really crowded. So I'm interested to see if there's any kind of consolidation in pre-con, if there's any kind of betterment in pre-con. We're using a couple tools, and we like them. I think there's some things that can still be developed, and I'm interested to see where pre-con goes, leveraging AI in pre-con, because there is a huge opportunity, right? If you think about a general contractor and other contractors, if you've got a good hit rate, you might be in the 40%, you might be in a 50% if you're real good, got a lot of clients who do negotiated deals on. For us, being that we do so much of like public work, our hit rates, it's like we're around 30, which is pretty good. But for us to be $1 billion company, we are estimating almost 7 billion? No, 30% of that. Yeah. So it's like, multiples on top of whatever that revenue drive is to provide the estimating. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of resources.
For sure.
So for us, we've overhauled the way that we capture our estimating data, and so that we can position ourselves and to start mining and leveraging AI to like gain insights into things we can't see, right. But then to also make it so that our clients have more trust in us. We're showing them, here's our projects that we've been in the past. These are like marketplace. They're escalated today's dollars. Like, let's talk about your job. And, if we're 18 months out, let's look at inflationary indices and let's find that right fit. It's interesting because, again, we're coming at it from the fact that we want to shed that risk. right? There's no reason that we need to hold a number for 18 months. So let's find that right value. It's along the way, there's all this trust that gets gained by the owners and the confidence that we know what we're talking about. And all we're doing is just being truthful,
right?
Which is sometimes different in the construction industry than what people are used to. I'm interested in the future tech of what shakes out of pre-con. I think there's a ton of opportunity there. AI is going to definitely change what's there. I think that in the next couple of years, I think somebody's going to emerge as more of a comprehensive, construction-focused AI that fits well into the general work streams of construction. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah, cool. Well, as we start to wrap up, a couple of rapid-fire questions. So, tagline of Great Tech is modeling the future. What does that mean and look like to you?
Yeah, you guys get to be the bleeding edge. We're done spending money. No, honestly, modeling the future is great. You guys got a couple products, too, about metal stud framing and wood framing that you guys have developed. They're really great. I do think that at some point in time, we may be looking at a self-perform type of situation there. And so, I think you guys are trying to find opportunities to literally make our lives easier. And I think that modeling for the future is that, right? Of course, you guys are a business. You need to have some credit there for it. But the part is that contractors specifically try to take things on. It's like, I can do it myself. When it comes to software development, that's not our strong suit, right? But you guys being construction focused and having that, where you're developing your own IP and developing your own products based on what our needs are, makes it so it's a much better relationship for us, right? We don't need to be software developers.
I think you got the heart of the tagline there. That was said. What does innovation mean to you?
Yeah, innovation. You got the old knuckle dragon ways of the old. Innovation to me means is that you got to keep those the blinders off. You got to look at everything, right, in order to make sure that you feel like that you're headed at least in the right path. You may not be on the right path, but you're heading in the right direction. And so innovation to me is you got to, all of these emerging technologies, you got to see through to see what that tech is, and you've got to understand where your company's at. And the innovation piece is how do you maximize knowing both ends to keep your company moving in a direction that's going to make things easier for us to build, easier for us to manage, easier for us to monitor. There's just shedding that risk. It's got to be easier, right? That's our focus. I think innovative is to stay on that part of knowing the business and knowing the tech to make it so that these guys can be successful in the build.
Yeah. If I can summarize that in a word, the word that comes to mind is intentionality.
Yes.
Of what you just said. You have to be incredibly intentional.
That's exactly.
Push it.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Very accurate.
Yeah. Nice. So how do people connect and learn more about what you guys got going on at Satpon?
Yeah. I'm not a huge social media person, but yeah, LinkedIn, come and find me. The irony is that we've got plenty of people that are our competitors and other people that reach out. I'm all for the lessons that we've learned and the wisdom that we can share. I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. We're going to be asking questions, too, about how they approach change management, right? Like what's been working for them. Yeah. I always want to see the side of that piece because that does feel like it's the hardest piece. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Come up to me and talk to me. I'm probably already talking to someone when that's happening. But yeah, I'm everywhere, right? If not, they can reach out to me, right off of our website or via email or just, contact me.
Awesome. Well, final question for you. If I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing in construction, what would you pick to innovate?
I have that answer. I don't know if I want to give it away. Honestly, if I could snap my fingers, I think it goes back to the fact of easier for a lot of the guys that are in the field. Easy for tech is different than easy for the guys in the field. Easy for the guys in the field is this comprehensive one-stop shop that they can get a lot of information from. They struggle. They struggle between having to flip between one product that does this thing well and another product that does this thing well and another product that does this thing well, right? I think that if I could snap my fingers, I got a product that does everything, maybe not as well as every single one of those, but does it pretty damn well. And it keeps it, they need information as fast as they can at their fingertips, and to have to hop between those different things, it's not efficient. If I could snap my fingers, it'd be something that does more in the same product, same suite of tools.
Like the one platform to rule them all, or interoperability between everything?
Interoperability would be great, right? I don't think there's going to be a one platform to rule them all. I think that in a very data-driven manner that we're heading there, right? A lot of people are catching up on the concept of big data, starting to gather their resources that are there. It's how do you cull and align all that data, and then how do you access it? So if you snap your fingers and you're working off of, this kind of intelligent construction drawing, and I can then glean all this information that's there, that's pulling from the actual sources, right? So if I'm in ACC and I'm on an object and I'm looking for RFIs against it, or I'm looking for submittals against it, or I'm looking, right? The method here is that I've got to add layers of data on top of a flat file to do that, right? I actually think that the way that these guys can be operating is that it kind of changes the back and forth, right? Instead of going to the tool to look at different things, I can go to the object to then look at all the data that's behind it instead of starting with the data first. And I think it's going to be a shift in mentality. And I think that if I'm snapping my fingers, it's changing the way that information is accessed in the jobs, right? So I kind of pivoted full circle there on what's there. But, honestly, it's not necessarily one to rule them all. It is that interoperability. But I think that we got to change the way that we're trying to access that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think AI is probably going to help in that kind of change mentality, because we're going to have to look at data just differently, and the way we interact with it, even just on the text prompts, that's going to change the way you're going into the model and designing and interacting. So it'll be an interesting thing to keep tabs on.
We'll have the change management piece will rear its head, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure, especially on that.
Yeah, I actually, I think AI is going to play a big part of it. I'm curious to see if the way that people are currently positioning AI for like the LLMs and asking questions, I'm curious if that stays the trend. I think people are going to develop the agents a little bit more so that you can have these. You don't have to actually ask some questions. You can provide some like general questions, prompts, or whatever's there, and can help you start to steer that risk. But I also think that when you come back to it, getting it in the hands of those field guys, it's a jump for them to get to the part where I can text a question about my job. They're so used to being so hard driving on, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go into the drawings. I'm going to go into the details. I'm going to go into the submittal to look at the way that it's actually there. I'm going to find that approval, right? To then come back around and have a guy that he's managing go put it in place. And did they do it right? I think this object-driven approach has a lot of legs to be something that could change the way that the superintendents, the way that you're managing a project, is accessing that data. Not asking the questions, but literally looking at what would be a 2D sheet, clicking on an object, and then saying, here's my RFIs, here's my submittals. By the way, these are my associated P6 activity schedules. Here's the subcontractor that's running it. My P6 schedule said I'm at 46% complete, but they're billed out to 50. Here's the activities of their schedule. There's a lot of other things that can come from all this data that resides in ACC, but have it to be where it connects back to an object-driven approach, right? Those guys live in those plans. So why not make something that makes it so that they don't have to leave those plans? They're only just culling all of that data behind it to be smarter and faster, and how they're going to answer these questions anyways.
Yeah. That's a whole other podcast topic right there. I'd love to bring you back. We can dive into that later. Mark, thanks so much for taking the time and joining the show today.
I appreciate you having me.
Awesome.
And now it's time for my Todd takes from this episode. First take, culture turns skeptics into champions. SatPon's bleeding edge mindset starts at the top and spreads by proving value on real jobs. Once teams see tech remove risk and save time, the boulder rolls downhill. Your hardest skeptics then become your loudest advocates. Trust is earned by solving their problems first. Second take, be intentional. New tech, new process. Their Procore to ACC migration worked because they didn't cram old habits into new tools. Clear ownership, phased rollout, and people-first support for training, ticketing, KPIs kept overwhelm down and adoption up. The same discipline guides AI. Avoid point solution sprawl, prioritize impact. And finally, make the field's job easier. The win isn't more apps. It's faster answers where supers already live. The plans. An object-driven approach that ties RFIs, submittals, schedule, cost, and vendor info to the element on screen beats tool switching every time. Interoperability and smart tools should serve that simple goal. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit our sponsor, Great Tech Group, at asti.com for more information. You can listen to this podcast anytime by simply going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out our website, bridgingthegappod.com. As always, I'm Todd Wyatt, thanking you for joining the conversation to model the future on the Bridging the Gap podcast. Keep innovating.